Yeah, and I should, so to give a little bit more overview of what Delta does, our Cerdal network program at Wisconsin. So Delta is really focused on kind of teaching scholarly teaching in a way that, it's certainly, I'm not a physics education researcher in the same vein as what's going on here. This has really been kind of a chance for me to pursue interest in teaching, kind of learn how do you apply kind of research ideas in your day-to-day teaching so that you can evaluate what's going on. And I'll try to give you a little bit of a story of how I ended up doing this cooperative group work workshop to teach TAs how to lead cooperative group work, and which is something that that doesn't necessarily go on in the physics department at Wisconsin. The way that you have tutorials kind of integrated into a lot of the intro physics classes here in the physics department. So I'll give you a little bit of a story of how I came to work on this workshop. So I was kind of vaguely aware when I came into grad school that literature supports the idea that cooperative group work, active learning types of things provide clear learning benefits for students. And I ended up trying to use this as a TA my first semester as a TA. The professor kind of asked us to do that as part of what we did in our discussion sections. And what I found from this is that really students aren't necessarily going to be on top of this as much as we would like them to be. Kind of blindly introducing group work to a discussion section does not guarantee success. And I found that there was actually a lot of resistance to change because they expected kind of a traditional lecture type environment. So the conclusion from that was that TAs really need some background to be able to do this effectively, to know why are we doing group work, what are we expected to get out of it, and what are the skills that we need to do it. So the professor of that course, Michael Winokur at Wisconsin, and I talked about that afterwards. We decided we really wanted to do something about it. So we decided that maybe a workshop would be the way to do it. So this is to give you an idea of how the development of the workshop was related to what Delta does. So I figured you're probably interested in how the Delta program works at Wisconsin. So we did this TA. We decided that we wanted to develop some materials. Delta offers a variety of courses for graduate students, postdocs, faculty. This course, Instructional Materials Development, is kind of a unique one in that faculty and grad students register as teams coming into it with a specific problem that they want to develop materials for. And so there are other groups that are coming in from across the STEM disciplines. So we have people in electrical engineering, people in biology, and it was kind of neat to get a chance to see people trying to put together materials in these different contexts. Out of that came this group learning workshop, and then I did an implementation of that actually as part of a teaching this research internship through the Delta program, which is kind of a one-credit thing where you're put together with other students that are trying to implement a teaching this research project. Then there were these other two Delta courses that I took, Teaching with Technology and Diversity in the College Classroom, where in each of these courses you have a teaching project that you're working on. And for me that ended up being this group learning workshop, and it kind of developed through these different experiences. Yes?
Could you say a little bit more, like how many faculty are taking advantage of this instructional materials development course? Is it a couple every year, or?
Yeah, so I mean when we have that course there were maybe 6 groups involved. So each of those groups had one faculty member and then 1 or 2 grad students. To give you an idea of how Delta, so Delta is something in the graduate school across STEM fields. There isn't the kind of integration that you have here, like with the physics department, having people doing education within that. So it's kind of the faculty that are interested in teaching in various departments kind of end up doing these activities.
Can they run it though with 6 faculty every semester? So is that course consistently offered with about 6 faculty?
Yeah, yes, I think that it's offered pretty much once a year, and it's about that response that they get for it.
Can you say a little bit more too, maybe about how
Yes.
your high energy advisor thinks about like you spending time in these Delta programs? Because this is something we sort of run up against in trying to get increased
Yeah,
participation.
I think that I was lucky in my experience. Kind of when I started working with my advisor, Matt Herndon at Wisconsin, I told him that I had these interests in teaching. I might end up in a teaching career. I wanted to be doing some of this Delta stuff, and he was encouraging of that. He said, if that's what you want to do, we need to make sure that you have the experiences to do that. That's certainly not the experience of every graduate student at Wisconsin. So yeah, this is a big barrier, and I think it's kind of cool to see the ties that there are in this department and kind of how that affects the culture within the department. But yeah, there are faculty that are very difficult to convince. Just to give you an idea of what's in these Delta courses, so CERDL is they have 3 pillars. Is the idea, and the big idea is teaching as research, so kind of scholarly teaching, assessing what you're doing. And then the other 2 pillars are learning communities and learning through diversity. In each of these courses, you kind of get an overview of those 3 concepts, those 3 pillars, and you do a teaching as research project. So let's talk about my actual workshop that I ended up designing. I had to decide on the scope of the project that eventually you want undergrads that are going to be touched by these TAs that will be doing group work. You want them to have measurable learning gains. We decided that was beyond the scope of what we wanted to try to assess. So really we are focusing on kind of assuming that gaining a knowledge of the literature, seeing group work in action, getting some of that education on this is going to lead to learning goals for the students, or learning outcomes for the students. So we're really focusing on how participants' attitudes are changing when they go through this workshop. So we want to improve their attitude toward group work, their motivation for that, improve their impressions of their own abilities so they have confidence to facilitate group work. And then we want to model successful group work for them. So this leads to a set of learning goals, introduce them to the education literature, motivate them to use active learning techniques, increase their confidence, and equip them with some practical skills to be able to use this successfully. And so our assessments ended up being surveys where we're basically asking them to self-assess. How do you feel about each of these? And you'll see the actual structure of that survey in a minute. So it's actually in the workshop. We have the surveys that I mentioned to assess what's going on. It's broken into basically 3 main parts, each anchored in an activity. The first part is really about introducing them to the education literature and giving them an idea of what it says about cooperative group work. The second and third sections are each focused on an activity that I'll show you later, and a discussion about what went on in that activity. And these discussions are really kind of the core part of this workshop. It gives them a chance to kind of work through their own feelings about group work and what their concerns are. So the next couple of slides I'm going to move through pretty quickly. These are actually what I present in the workshop itself, just to give you an idea of what it looks like when you're going through it. First you have this pre-workshop survey. You have 5 questions. Each of these is connected to one of the learning goals for the participants. So you can see, these are statements: cooperative group work could be useful in my teaching. How much do you agree with that? And they rate themselves on this scale from strongly disagree to strongly